is going to be on funding. This session is going to be on funding, but I'm not going to get into very minute details of how funding happens, because it's a very long process and it's a different process for each and every individual, each and every startup who is getting funding, depending on what kind of venture they're building, what stage of the life cycle for that startup journey they are in, and what kind of investors they're looking for, and most importantly, what quantum of resources they're looking for. Right? So I would talk about the very basic and broad aspects through which you can develop an idea, because I believe that most of you are in college, and this is a point of time where you're still figuring out what to do. So this would help you to have a preliminary understanding about the avenues, what are the basic things, and then you can definitely build on it. If at all you are going for funding and you need support, I'm pretty sure your professors, their various mentors at XYZ are there, and you can feel free to connect with me as well. And I'll be happy to help you out with whatever is needed. So moving on. So can anyone maybe tell me this is taken from which film? Anyone in the audience? Have you watched this film or remember this film? Or what is your interpretation of this movie?
Person is in a big stressed condition.
Pardon, Professor Paul, I couldn't hear you. Could you come again?
The person is in very stressed condition.
Yes. You're right on one front. I'll just wait for any other person if they are.
Sir, I would just like to interrupt that your voice is breaking. Is it panelist, other panelist? Can you also hear, sir, voice is breaking?
Okay, there is little breaking. Yes.
Yes, okay. So, sir, can you just check with the internet connection?
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah. It is okay. It is better. It is better now. It is
Yeah.
better now.
I'll just show.
Yeah, it is better now.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So coming back to this meeting, any other response other than professor's response? That what exactly do you mean by this meeting? Okay. I think people are still a bit shy, but don't be shy. There's nothing as a wrong answer or a stupid question. Please feel free to mention whatever is on your mind. So this
Actually,
is from
anyone wants to talk, we can allow him to talk. Okay, that permission we can give him. If anybody wants to talk.
Yeah, please maybe raise your hand, then the
Yeah. Then yes, then we'll make the
yes. Come on, give it a shot. There's no incorrect answer. There's nothing wrong about it. And I see around 35 to 38 people who are joining as attendees. So I'm pretty sure one of you must have seen this film. Okay, just maybe say which film is it. Anyone? Maybe put it down on the chat or in the Q&A section. There's so many people that I see. All right, I will just then go ahead. So this is from the film Gladiator. Okay, this is one of the most legendary films ever made, and this here shows the king's son who is supposed to become the new king, and here is the king's general who is sent into exile because the king's son murdered the king and became the new king. So the situation with a startup. First of all, do you have an understanding what it means when I say bootstrapped, or this image says bootstrapped? Any perspective, any idea? Anyone? Okay. So bootstrapped organizations are those organizations which do not raise external funds. These are entrepreneurs who run their company and their venture with their own money or from private sources, which they raise maybe from their friends or from their family, and run their company, generate a revenue, put in that revenue to the company's benefit and grow the company. They do not take external funding. That is when a company is called bootstrap. And VC funded, it means when an organization has raised external funding, there are VCs who have helped them out, and the VCs have given this organization a certain sum of money or the resources in return of a certain percentage of equity or ownership of the company, or maybe a certain revenue sharing as well, right? So this is the whole reason why I wanted you to show this to because usually VC funded startups, you would see they're very lavish because it's not their own money. So you can see how these two people are dressed and how these two people are positioned as well, where one person is free and the other person is trying their best to get out of the shackles. So this is the reason why I showed you this view. But then quickly moving on, this also I have kept blank because I did not want to answer these questions because these are very easy questions. What is venture and what is the capital? I wanted to understand from students, what is your perception? What is called a venture? What is called a capital? Do you have an understanding? And again, there's no incorrect answer. There's no wrong answer. Based on what you have seen around, based on maybe things you have learned, maybe things you have seen on the internet, what according to you is a venture? What according to you is a capital? If you're shy to speak, just feel free to note down your answers on the chat section, where even I can see that. So I'll count till 10 and see if there's any responses coming in. The chat section is still empty. I'm not getting any answers. Come on, please feel free to speak up.
I want to answer. So I think the
Yeah.
venture is the concept with which I am planning something, and capital is definitely the investment. I mean, at least to me, I am not very expert at this.
No, absolutely. It's like absolutely correct answer. But I think just to add to the definition of venture is something which also involves quite an amount of risk. And I think during the pandemic, the whole scenario about investment, putting your money into different places to grow your money has become a thing. And people in general have become a lot more associated with this. So you might have also come across this idea that the higher the risk, the higher are your chances of profitability, right? So usually venture capitalists are people, okay, I see something coming. Voice is breaking still. Okay, let me try without my earphones.
Professor Ghosh, can you confirm whether?
Yeah, it is better now.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, then I won't use the earphone. Yeah. So as I was mentioning, that venture is initiative or like a structure or an organization which involves a certain degree of risk. And venture capitalists are known to be people who identify and has the potential to mitigate certain amount of risk and grow their money. That is why they invest in an organization which has the potential for a humongous growth, so that whatever money they are putting in, they are able to multiply that money. That is the sole reason why venture capitalist organization or venture capitalist firms exist in the market. because they are just here for the money, nothing else. So moving on, when you're out there in the market, when you have an idea of your own, you have maybe built a prototype, you have maybe tested out in the market, or maybe in a small group of people, and now you want to maybe grow that venture, maybe have a more professional prototype in place, or maybe you want to try out new markets where you can explore this product, or maybe build a few more prototypes which can help you for larger understanding of what your final product or service is going to look like. So there are different kinds of fund available out there in the market, and they can be broadly categorized into these 4 sections, that is revenue, debt, grant, and equity. Anyone out there who knows the meaning of all 4 of these, or maybe one of these? Again, feel free to put your thoughts on chat, or maybe raise your hand so we can unmute you so that you can answer.
I think debt is when I borrow something from a person, and grant is when I mean, when I get some government mediated capital.
Yes.
That's all I know. I'm not very sure about revenue and equity.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. That was really correct to the point. That is when you borrow an amount of money for your venture and you have to give that back to the person on a certain rate of interest, right? That is what is known as debt capital. Now, when I talk about revenue capital is, for example, Dr. Ghosh is running a startup. Maybe where she's finding out different new innovative ways of teaching the students so that they become more interactive, more curious, and more participative, right? And she needs to build a platform which is tech enabled, and for that she needs a certain amount of fund. So maybe she goes to different investors out there and says that, hey, you know what, I'm building this. This is going to help my students. And once I test it on my students and they're getting a good result out of it, and getting the result which I wanted out of it, maybe I can open it up to a larger audience, a larger set of students who can benefit from it, right? And the person says that, hey, you know what, I think this is a profitable business. What I'll do, I'll give you some money. And what happens is when you grow your business and you get the revenue, I would consistently take 5% of your revenue for the money I give you. You don't need to give back the money, but maybe for the next 5 years when you are growing, I would consistently month on month or year on year take 5% of your entire revenue. So that is a revenue sharing model where the investor gets in or invests in your organization, in your venture, in return for a revenue sharing basis, right? And grant, as Dr. Ghosh rightly mentioned, it's something which is mediated by the government or a large NGO or some other body, where you do not really need to give back the amount which the organization has given for you. But do remember that grants are for very specific things. Only if you are doing something which is going to benefit the audience or the people at large, that is when grants are available to you. That is when you can use them to build the venture that you're building, but also extending the benefits of your venture or services of your venture, maybe at a subsidized or maybe at free of cost, to different categories of people who can benefit from that, right? And equity, I think this is one of the most common sort of funding methodologies out there. So for example, let's go back to the scenario where Dr. Ghosh is building that platform, and she goes to investors. An investor says that, hey, you know what, this is something which is going to be big, and I want to be one of the owners or partial owners of this organization. So I'll give you X amount of money in return of Y percentage of ownership of your organization, right? So the investor now also becomes a partial owner of that organization where he or she or that firm invests in, right? So that is the equity route of funding. I hope most of you get a clarity of things till now. So I'll quickly move on. Okay. I thought memes would make you happy and you would respond, but I'm not getting any response. So this is again another meme. So what it takes for the investor or the VC to hand you over that check or write that check or be excited to give you that money, right? So one of the most important things is a pitch deck, that when you have a great communication where you can clearly define what exactly is the problem that you're trying to solve, what exactly are you building, what is the sizable market, what is the total market size that you're addressing with the venture that you're building, and how many people can benefit from it, and most importantly, how much money can you make. Once you can answer all these questions very precisely and clearly, maybe in a pitch deck, maybe in a document, that is when investors would become this and say, hey, you know what, take my money. So I have listed down a broad set of parameters or steps through which funding can be raised. And obviously each of these parameters, now if you see there are 3 blocks, but each one of this process might take around maybe say a month or 2 months to complete, because these are long and complicated processes where you need to be very clear about the information that you are putting in, right? So for example, if you're putting in an application form to a certain VC organization before you go for your first round of meeting, they would be judging your venture, your idea, your solution based on that single piece of form, that single piece of paper or that pitch deck that you have sent to them. And you're not talking to them, you have just communicated with a written piece or maybe just a video that you have recorded and shared. So it's very important that it conveys all the necessary information which can make them interested in your venture. That is when people would be interested. So for this shortlisting negotiation, there are also separate and several parameters which you need to take in consideration while you're making the decision. So I'll take one of them one at a time and explain to you how exactly it happens. So when I talk about documentation and application, means that from the very beginning, when you are starting your venture, you should keep in mind that all the necessary information, the progress, what you're trying to build, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, has to be clearly put down. It has to have a proper documentation in place, which ultimately would help you in forming those applications when you're reaching out to certain investors. So please ensure that you have your essential numbers in place, your business plan, and when you're filling out the application form, do it with utmost sincerity so that you do not miss out on the details. Be very truthful and honest about what you're doing. Don't forge numbers. Be ethical in what you're doing, so that the startups, when you are building them, also are the people or the organizations who are going to shape the future, right? And if it is not ethical, ultimately, at some point of time or the other, people would be getting to understand what you did, what the organization is for, and there would be a downfall that follows. So be ethical, be honest in whatever you're doing. Don't forge numbers. Maybe project numbers, show that, hey, I'm here right now, but with your investment, with your support and mentoring, I would be able to reach here. So be very clear. Then the next part is shortlisting and negotiation. So whenever you are putting in an application or whenever you're receiving offers from these VC firms or different kinds of investors, be very certain what you're getting into. Shortlist on the basis of that VC firm's expertise. So for example, an ABC company or a VC firm would maybe be very interested and has experience and track record of working very closely with edtech companies. But if you're doing something in manufacturing, it might not be a great idea to go to them and raise funds, right? First of all, they might not be ready to give you funds. Second, even if they give you funds, they might not have the expertise or the network or the connection to help you grow. So be very certain about whom you're going to. So shortlist well, have a set of parameters that whether that investors would be great for your organization. Would you be able to have a good rapport and a working relationship with that person? Would that person be adding any more value other than just giving you funds? And once you have this thing sorted out, be very careful about the negotiation. And when I say be very careful about the negotiation, I do not mean that negotiate very hard to get the deal that you wanted. Because most of the times what will happen is that if you are too hard on negotiating, you might lose the deal. So even if a couple of percentage of equity goes here and there, that's all right. Try to understand the larger goal, the larger value that investor, that mentor is bringing in, and come to a consensus with your team, with your co-founders maybe, and close the deal, right? And after all these things have been done, finally, the VC firms, they would do a proper due diligence of your organization, of all the numbers that you have mentioned. Remember, I mentioned you to be very ethical and honest while you're putting down numbers and the thought process and the plan and how you want to go about it. So this is where it all gets checked. And if you do not comply with what you have provided before, then you lose the funding. But if you do comply with what you have provided and you have been honest and ethical, yes, now you finally get that check and you're ready to expand or invest that money in your business to grow in whichever direction you're planning to, right? Any questions till now? Anything that you want to share? Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds, like maybe say 5 seconds. I'll just drink some water as well. So now once you know that what are the broad steps, what is VC, what are the different kinds of funding, now finally when you go to raise that fund, what you should be keeping in mind, or I think this is a sort of a hack that you need to understand what the VC keeps in mind while they're ready to fund you. And what the VC looks at before funding you, they would look at a minimum of 8 to 10x in returns. So for example, today, if any of you are starting a startup or a venture and you come to me and maybe I say, okay, I give you X amount of money. So in 3 to 5 years time, I would want 8 to 10x return. So it's essentially like a 800 or 1000% return that I'm looking in 3 to 5 years. And that's what all VCs look at. So be sure that whatever market you're going in, whatever industry you're starting your venture in, has a sizable market which can grow to a 8 to 10x, and you can get that market share as well in a span of 3 to 5 years from the point of time when you're raising your funds. Because once funds come in from VCs, that is when you just grow. That is when you expand territories. That is when you reach out to more people who can adopt your product or service. So be very mindful of that. The next thing that they look at is the market size and the scalability. That means what is the total number of people? What is the biggest set in the universe that you can address to, or who can be your potential customers, right? And what are your steps and what are your feasibility to scale to that large market from where you are right now? So it becomes really important that you are addressing a large market, because that is when you would be able to earn more revenue, and that is what the VCs are interested at. So be very careful in charting out what kind of market size you're addressing and how you're going to scale and reach that level in a span of 3 to 5 years, or maybe have a detailed plan in place. The next thing that is of supreme importance is what the team looks like, what the foundation team looks like. So when you're building your own venture, it is an idea which might work, which might not work. But what is that one thing that makes a difference? One thing that makes a difference is the structure of the team. What is the experience of the team? Whether the team has that skills to make that happen, whether the team is passionate enough, whether the team is dedicated enough to make that happen. So it's very important that the foundation team is very strong. They are committed to the mission or the vision that you are driving towards. And that is something which the VCs would definitely check before they even think of investing in you. The next part, which becomes really important again, in general for VCs and for you to also succeed, is how innovative is your product or service, how unique it is. Is it something which people can easily replace? Is it something which people can easily replicate? So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself also when you're trying to validate your idea. That, hey, I'm building this today with me, my friends or family, or a couple of co-founders. Is it a possibility that someone else who maybe has bigger resources or more access to resources and funds, would they be able to replicate it easily? Would they be able to go to market faster than I am doing? So answer these questions for yourself whenever you're starting a venture, so that you know that what kind of situation you're getting in, what are the challenges that might come up. And once you know what challenges might come up, you would also be able to find out ways to mitigate those challenges. So be very certain of this. And last but not the least, the VC also looks at the equity distribution. That is how the ownership of the organization looks like. So for example, if 10 of you are starting a company together and you decide that each one of you get 10% equity. So it's an even distribution. Now, when a VC comes in and they would see that, okay, 10 people are there, they have already distributed 10% to each one of them. What do I get? Do I get 5% from each, or do I get 1% from each? So if the VC does not have a chunk of your company or a certain percentage of your company, they would also not be very interested in putting the money, because ultimately the money that they're putting in is also directly proportional to what kind of growth they are going to have and what kind of ownership percentage or partial ownership they're going to have. So if it's not something which is lucrative to them, they won't join in. So be very certain about the kind of equity distribution that you have. Be very mindful while you're doing the equity distribution, and what exactly can you offer to the VC, at what percentage of equity and what amount. So have a proper number flow for that. Be data driven when you're making this decision, not just random numbers. Try to understand the market, try to understand the standards, try to understand what exactly you're building and what it's worth, and then normalize the numbers in terms of the kind of ownership that you want to shell out to the VC and the amount of money or resources that you are expecting against it. I hope you get an understanding of what the broad criteria are like. Is there any question? Any thoughts? Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. So this is again another important question which everyone asks. When exactly do you should go and raise money? See, there's no correct time, and that's the most truthful answer. There's no correct time, because there's no set standard when one needs money. Today, at this point of time, I might need money. Tomorrow, at a certain point of time, I might not need money for my certain growth or certain processes that I want to do for my organization. Based on what kind of situation I'm in, based on what kind of journey my startup is in, and most importantly, what kind of funds I have in terms of maybe revenue, maybe grants, or maybe even a sort of a funding from my friends, family, and other people around me, right? So there's no correct time, but what I would suggest, be mindful of when you're raising your funds. Because whenever you give partial ownership of your organization to an external person in return for money, they would be involved in your day-to-day business. They would be influencing your decisions, right? So when that happens, sometimes startup founders find it really, really difficult to go and achieve their vision, go and achieve their mission. It becomes a stress, it becomes a roadblock. So till the point of time you think you can maybe work with the revenue that you're generating or your own bootstrapped money, it's the best not to raise funds immediately, right? So be very certain, assess the decision, maybe talk to a financial consultant, maybe talk to friends, or maybe most importantly, talk to people who already have raised funds and gone through the process to understand whether at that point of time is a great time to raise a fund or raise a level of funding or not. Right? So we are almost towards the end of it. And here are some points you need to keep in your mind before you raise the funds. As I mentioned, early on in your venture, it's not the best idea to raise a fund level or a series of fund from VC. That is because of the steps and the parameters that come with it, the decision making, the influence. Often that might be a great thing as well, that whenever a VC comes in at an early stage, that person might be really aligned to your vision, and that person helps you with networks, with experience, with connections, and help you achieve your goals. But what has been seen in the past, that usually that is not the case, right? So the next part, which I would suggest you to be very proactive about, is build strong networks and keep them engaged. Today, if you're going and meeting a person or getting introduced to a person whom you think in the longer run can help you achieve something with whatever you're doing, talk to that person, keep them engaged. Obviously, do not bother them on a daily basis, but whenever you have something which is of a sort of a mutual value addition, take it to them, have a conversation, have a discussion, or maybe share your life updates with them, with their kind permission, obviously. That, hey, Mr. This and this, or ma'am, this and this, do you think you would be able to help me make a few decisions or mentor me with my journey? And once they agree, keep in touch with them, engage with them, try to understand from their life experiences how they make decisions, take their help, make use of their experience. That is what I'm coming to at, and their networks and connections. But obviously, do not be pushy. Have that basic decorum in place so that they are also comfortable in talking to you and helping you out. And whenever you're raising a fund or a level or a series of fund, try to have someone within that VC organization or that investor circle who is someone who believes in your cause, in your team, in your vision, in your idea, so that this person internally would be advocating for you, would be saying that, hey, you know, folks, that these people who are coming with this idea and they are asking for a certain amount of fund for this person equity, I think we should give them that fund because they are doing really great work. There are a bright set of students who have been working on it relentlessly. And I see a potential in them which can grow into a large thing. So I think we should invest our money in them and help them grow. So build that champion. And as I already mentioned, be very proactive, meet as many people, as many VCs as you can, build that network, keep them engaged, and always keep your energy level high. So that because see, ultimately you bounce off energy. When you go and talk to a person with a very high energy note, they would also reply to you in a sort of a very high energy tone. And that is when you match your wavelengths, you build up that bond, you build up that rapport. And that person also understands that, hey, this person is energetic, this person is enthusiastic, and this person can get things done. So maybe down the line, if that person needs funds or any help, I would be able to help this person, or I would be ready to help this person because this person is putting in effort and energy in getting things done. So it's as simple as that. And whenever you are making a decision, be data driven. and be prompt. Do not take random decisions. Do not take your complete gut feeling or hunch feeling. Be data driven, but also have a certain intuition in your mind which can help you towards a certain things. Obviously, at all points of time, data is not something which is absolute. It helps you to a certain percentage, but have that your own age to make that decision as well. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation and talk. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them. Yeah, I think there are no questions, but if still there are, please feel free to.
Actually, I want to ask a question. Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, at what technology readiness level we should approach for the VC? At what technology readiness level? Actually, many of our students have done something, but they are only in the laboratory scale. Okay, not much of hardware has been built up. It is mostly the experimental stage. Something has been obtained, and they want to develop further on that. So, according to your view, what is your suggestion for at what technology readiness level one can go for the VC funding?
See, VC funding, I think, is too premature for this level. VC funding comes in at a stage when the product is ready. It has been tested in the market. There's already some sort of a revenue or sales happening for that organization. Okay. So for example, if I'm building a product or a service and I already have paying customers for my venture, and I want to move at a stage where I want to grow that market, wherever maybe into new cities, maybe into new countries, or maybe build a different product line, or maybe improve my supply for the product or service. That is when VC comes in. But before that, Professor, to answer your question, technology readiness level, how I think it should graduate is when the students start working something at the laboratory level, they build a prototype, maybe go to you, the professors, their friends, their family, and maybe the target market they're looking at. Have a prototype, a sort of a beta testing happening there. Then they receive the response, then they build a finer prototype, and then maybe try to do it commercially. Those are the steps which an organization should follow. And these steps often become very slow because at each and every level, there needs to be some sort of a funding coming in to help them achieve that. And usually organizations or angel funds have the capacity to give you that fund.
Yeah, good.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it is there. Actually, our difficulty, the students stays here for around 4 years. And normally in the third year or fourth year, they start doing the experiment. And when they have completed fourth year, that is only the experiment also will not be fulfilled. Something has been done, but after that they are passing out from the university. So many of them are losing track with us. So what is important is that we have to keep them hold as by alumni association. Then only they can be in touch with us. Then only whatever has been done that can be made ready or that can be fit to the market. Then only that entrepreneur, all these things will come. So the basic difficulty because students stay here is very less, and mostly they work in their third year and fourth year. So we are not able to build a final product from the institute at the institute level.
Absolutely, and I think I resonate with the fact that you just mentioned, because once end of third year and fourth year comes, that is when it becomes difficult to choose between one should carry on with their experiments, ventures, or they settle for a job which pays them.
Yes.
And most of us come from middle class backgrounds where that paycheck at a regular level becomes really, really important. So that dreams and aspirations of being an entrepreneur sometimes goes in for a toss. But I think there's no right time to start, as I mentioned. Maybe one can start at school, maybe one can start at the first year of college, or maybe while they're working as well. And I think it's very important for the students and entrepreneurs to understand that they can go back to their alma mater or to some professional bodies which can help them structure their business or give them that required support they need. And I think there's some question which
Yeah,
came
there is a question. There is
Yes,
a
there
question.
is 2 questions, I think.
Yeah,
two questions came in from Tanu. Yeah, so how can daters restart their business? Is there a possibility where she can unmute herself?
Yeah, I'll do. Okay, I'm unmuting her.
Yeah.
I have already unmuted.
Yeah.
Tanu,
Hey,
you can ask question directly to sir.
yeah, please go ahead, because I'm not very sure of the first question, what exactly you wanted. Please feel free to ask.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my first question is, like, there are many people during the COVID who had suffered huge losses in their business. So
Yeah.
is it possible, and they are in huge debt, so is it possible for them to restart their business? So would you please share some tips for them?
Sure, definitely. I think there are no correct answers to it, and there are no wrong answers to it. It depends on entirely the person's approach and that person's kind of zeal to achieve what they want to do. So it's very important to understand what position they're in, assess the risk that they can take at that point of time, and go about it. Obviously, the government today has done a lot of things which makes startups easily get access to funds or to certain loans or certain debt instruments. But again, that depends on the person's risk appetite and the kind of business they're getting into. Obviously, it's possible to restart, but there is no kind of concrete answer that I can give you right now, because it's very subjective. It depends on what kind of debt the person is in right now, what kind of business they are planning to get into. But most importantly, I think it's very important to assess the market, understand what it can grow into, and what kind of effort or risk that the person is again taking to restart that venture. So these are the things which are the broad parameters which one should keep in mind while restarting the business. But again, it's not as simple as I mention it right now. There are lots of complicated steps, circumstances that one needs to keep in mind while rising from such a situation. So I hope that gives you some bit of a clarity. I'm sorry, I would not able to give you a playbook for this right at this point of time. And there's your next question as well. Some tips for how to improve profitability in health sector, where there's huge competition in today's date. I think it's not about health sector. What I'll try to answer is on a broader scale, is that in whatever you're doing, there's competition everywhere. See the number of engineers passing out of an institution on a yearly basis. Then you kind of go into how many institutions are there in that locality, in that city, in that state and the country, right? It's very large, the numbers large. So whatever you are doing today, there is competition, and mostly thanks to the internet, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. That ideas, resources, information is easy to access. So a lot of people can do it. And if you have the potential and the right set of skills, and most importantly, the passion and dedication for it, you can build stuff. But to have an edge over competition in today's day, what you have to do is to have a differentiating factor, a very strong differentiating factor. How do you differentiate your venture, your ideas, your thoughts, your offerings to the people from what is already there? So today, if maybe, as you mentioned, health sector, right? If you say that a lot of organizations are doing home delivery of medicines, and they are doing it maybe, so for example, if I order from Apollo, I get it within like 2 hours. So do you think that maybe you can improve this timeline? Maybe can you deliver the medicine in 10 to 15 minutes for a person who needs it immediately? But how do you validate that? So these are the questions that you need to answer for yourself to understand that how exactly are you making a difference or having a separate differentiator for yourself through which the people or the customers would prefer you over your competitors. So try to build that edge, but how you build that edge is by understanding your target group. What exactly do they need and how do they need it? So if you can answer these questions for the venture that you're building, I think you would be at a position where you can develop that differentiator. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
No worries, my pleasure. Any more questions? Any thoughts?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the thing is, yeah, we discussed about, you showed about the profits, and to the investors, definitely I have to show them that what can be the profit. So if with a graph or like you showed that when I start a business, what is the investment, and with respect to that in 3 to 5 years, that what can be the profit out of it. But along with that, I have to also think about some risk, like we are discussing that there are risk factors. And if something like that happens, what should be my second venture, or there should be any backup plan for that, so that I am not just ruined because of the risk, but I can stand up again for that.
Absolutely. I think, again, this is something which is debatable and something which a different set of people have different perceptions when they go about it. So for example, I would be of an opinion where I would try to safeguard myself from most of the things that is happening around. So for example, I would never invest maybe my own complete capital into the venture that I'm launching, so that I do not take any money from the VC for my personal things. I can take care of myself, my personal things with my own capital, maybe which I have built, and use the VC money only for business. So in that way, I can separate my venture from my personal life. So my liability also gets distributed, so that if something goes wrong, my personal assets do not get dragged into the whole business scenario. Because if I have been that honest to keep my personal material or spiritual things from achieving them through the VC money, when things maybe fail for certain reasons, my personal assets should not be dragged to it. That's one perspective. And you mentioned whether there should be a plan B or not. Obviously, having a plan B is great. But when you have a plan B, you already divert your attention, your effort, your passion, dedication into two buckets. And if you're already not putting in more than 100% to the thing that you are building, it becomes difficult to succeed with that. That is my personal belief, and that is what I've learned through experimentations in different phases of life, that plan B helps, but most of the times what happens, if you have a plan B, you ultimately go ahead and do the plan B as well. The plan A automatically fails. But for some people, having two plans and succeeding in one has also happened. It keeps on happening. It entirely depends on the individual, their circumstances, and their thought processes of achieving things. I hope that you get an answer to your
Yes,
question.
thank you, sir. Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, then I would thank Mr. Ranamitra Ghosh for this very interesting and enthusiastic lecture. I'm sure this will be guiding the young minds thoroughly. And other than that, I would like to end this session also. I think sir would have also liked to join this session and to express his views, his own journey with the students and us. And in future also, if we organize any other events, we will have his presence with us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here. And I think the only ask that I would have, if at all I join next time, is I want the students to be more proactive, more engaging, because it's for them ultimately at the end of the day. So I want them to take the best out of it, make me think more, maybe make me put in tight spots where I find it difficult to answer questions. So I would be happy to conduct a session of that sort.
Thank you so much, sir. And with this, I would like to end this session. I would like to thank all the IIC members for helping this session to take place, all the students for joining, all the delegate faculties, our honorable director, madam, for always encouraging us, and thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all. আচ্ছা, ডক্টর মৌমিতা,
Yes, sir.
হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা, এই যে রেকর্ডিংটা আর কি অফ
হুম।
করতে হবে, ওইটা আপনার স্ক্রিনে কিছু দেখাচ্ছে, মানে কিছু আছে কি? তাহলে আমি এখান থেকে অফ করছি রেকর্ডিং।
হ্যাঁ, আপনি অফ করে দিন তাহলে।
ঠিক
ঠিক
আছে,
আছে।
রেকর্ডিং আমি অফ করছি।